This ESPN podcast is brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Very pleasant good afternoon on a Friday, Finebaum Friday, if you're in the drinking mode, and I think all of us are by now. We welcome you to the end of the week, or the end of the world, if you're tired of watching all the other networks talk about a ball and it being blown up and brought down. That's our topic today, too. Inflated balls. Anyway, we'll try to get back in gear. You know, the college basketball season is underway when an SEC game last night is known because there is a fight that takes place. That was a women's game, in case you haven't heard. Alabama and Auburn. No, those two don't really like each other. But we won't be talking too much about that. We won't be talking too much about the Arkansas-Alabama game, which was one of the more compelling games of the year. Alabama fans still trying to figure out how they got stuck with the coach that they did, but he's still around, and the odds of him winning a shot at the NCAA tournament were not helped last night in Fayetteville. On the football side, and that is a main component of what we do, there's some rivalries going on as well. Yesterday, forget Alabama-Auburn, the Florida-Tennessee rivalry, which really isn't a rivalry anymore, considering Florida has won, I don't know, 9 or 10, but who's counting, in a row. But Tennessee fans came in strong last night, and we'll get back to that a little bit. Mark Richt gets a contract extension and an $800,000 a year raise, and all we hear from Georgia fans is, why? Why is he still there? We'll talk to one of his former players tonight about the reasons why he is still there and why he will likely be there for a long time. Pat Forde, great writer from Yahoo, will jump on board tonight. Matt Stinchcomb is that former player at the University of Georgia. He's now an SEC Network analyst. Man, would not like to have that by my name. And Phil Savage, he's the Senior Bowl Executive Director, former GM of the Cleveland Browns. He's also the color analyst for the University of Alabama football broadcast. We'll talk to him as well. And your phone calls at 855-242-7285. Throughout most of the country, where the weather has turned ugly. In the south, it's been raining and sleeting. That storm about to move up the East Coast, and after a couple of days of decent weather, it looks like winter has returned. Let's get back to the phones. That's a good sounding conversation, even though we haven't taken a call in a mere 20 hours, but why not? Brian starts us off in Savannah, Georgia on a Friday. Hey, Brian, good afternoon.
Hey, Paul, how are you? Long time no talk to. I used to call you quite a bit, and it's been so difficult to get in to talk to you. I'm glad I finally made it. Hey, listen, Wednesday, I'm from Savannah, Georgia, and Wednesday I spotted the big swagoo, Marcus Spears, on River Street. And Marcus did not look happy, and he was holding up a big sign that said, looking for Charles. And as I was following him, periodically I would see people bolt off and run off from him, and later to find out, I asked a couple of those people why they ran off, and they said their name was Charles, and they looked so upset they were afraid of the guy. And all the Charleses in Savannah are held up, and tourism is down. And I just want to find out, has Charles left Savannah yet? We need to get these people back out on the street.
Well, as you know, Brian, I haven't been to Savannah too many times, but it's a beautiful place. And Savannah is in Georgia, as you well know. I'm not sure Charles has ever been outside of Alabama.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I've got a recommendation for Charles.
Thinks you need a passport to go across the state line from Alabama to Georgia.
Right. Well, I got a recommendation for Charles. The big swagoo is not happy, and he better take him up on his handshake over the phone, or he's going to have a big trouble on his hands.
Well, speaking of the big swagoo, Marcus is next up. Marcus is in Statesboro, Georgia. 2 Georgia calls right out of the chute. I don't think that will be the last 2 we get. Good afternoon, Marcus.
Good afternoon, Paul.
Hope all is well.
Tennessee fans. Can I remind Tennessee fans that you haven't beaten Florida or Georgia or Alabama? What's with y'all? I don't like When you beat somebody, talk to me. Stop calling on the show if you don't have nothing to prove. And as for Charles, be quiet. He needs to shake Marcus Spears' hand because he knows he's going to lose to Marcus Spears. And if I run into Charles from Reeltown, Missouri, he's gonna have trouble on his hands because he don't want to mess with me. That's all I got to say, Paul. Keep on the good work.
You said plenty, and we appreciate it very much. Thank you so much. Joe is up next in Pennsylvania. Joe, thanks. Good afternoon.
How you doing, Paul?
I'm well.
Hey, the reason why I'm calling is I think probably one of the better coaches that ever come out of Tennessee. They rehired him. He came to Pitt back in the Tony Dorsett days. Johnny Majors, and then there was Jackie Sherrill. Tennessee just needs to get a better coach. They have good athletes. I think the coaching is what's killing them. Johnny Majors, I don't know what the heck he's doing now. I know he's old, but he still probably could coach. Jackie Sherrill was the team that beat back in the day when they beat Georgia with a last-minute touchdown.
Yeah, that was 1982, 1981, or I think it was 1981.
Yeah, it's Marino.
Yeah.
And Herschel Walker was running up and down the field on him.
Well, let me say one thing. As far as Tennessee, I think Tennessee has a pretty good coach right now in Butch Jones. I would say Tennessee fans probably feel more secure in Butch Jones than Florida fans feel about Jim McElwain, who has a good resume and has done a good job hiring a staff, but he has yet to coach his first game at the University of Florida.
Yeah, I tell you, I get it. Didn't Johnny Majors go back to Tennessee and coach?
No, here's what happened. Majors was at Pittsburgh, as you alluded. Majors went to Pittsburgh from Iowa State. He won the national championship with Tony Dorsett in 1976. He also had one of the best defenses in college football history up there. And he left Pittsburgh to go back to Tennessee, where he played. Johnny Majors was an All-American at Tennessee. He's from Tennessee. His father coached at the University of Sewanee, not too far from Knoxville. Johnny was the Heisman runner-up in 1956 to Paul Hornung, and he coached at Tennessee until from 77 into 1992 when he was fired, and then the next year he went back to Pittsburgh, and I believe he lasted 4 years before he finally stepped down after a rather unspectacular return. And that's the history on Johnny Majors. Appreciate the call, though, but I'm not really sure how you can say that Tennessee doesn't have a good coach. David is in Bristol, Tennessee. Good afternoon, David. Thanks for the phone call.
Yeah, Paul. My name is David. I really enjoy listening to your show because some of your phone calls, the people that call you are really clueless. The thing that I would like to talk about is the playoff game. What people need to understand, inflated ball or not, and pardon the expression, but the Indianapolis Colts got their ass whooped, okay? And for me as a football fan, let's stop talking about the inflated football. Let's talk about the Super Bowl, okay? Who's playing in the Super Bowl? And let's move on because it's like reading a book over and over.
Yeah, let me say this about that, and I don't know where it's going to go, but I mean, I'm not specifically pointing toward any network, although ESPN is in the same boat as every other network in America, from the major networks to CNN to everyone else. But I mean, I've never seen more sound and fury signifying nothing in my, that's a quote from a couple of hundred years ago. It is patently absurd. And I don't think anyone on the air knows what they're talking about. And it's, what's the NFL supposed to do? I mean, good luck trying to find a needle in this haystack. Let's continue with more phone calls. Tom is in Ponte Vedra. Good afternoon.
Hey. Another painful loss last night. Reminds me of the Wichita State game.
Mm-hmm.
But they kind of hurried out and had to get out to the other basketball game. Was it close, or did he definitely? And by the way, gosh, one of the members of that broadcast crew was a big Arkansas fan. I've never seen such slanted commentary. But
are you talking about the because Joe Tessitore did the play-by-play? You talking about Sean Fordham, the guy that did the color?
Yeah, you're going crazy every time that one kid scored, and then Alabama was, hanging in there the whole way. And every time.
Well,
Arkansas
I mean,
scored.
listen, I saw the replay of it. It looked like there was not much doubt the tip-in was legit.
Okay. Well, thank you, and we'll enjoy the rest of the show.
Thanks. Yeah, it was listen, Alabama has played well this year, but they keep losing. So what are you going to do? I mean, how many years is it going to take for Anthony Grant to get it turned around? He's been there a while, hasn't he? Will is up next in Oxford, Mississippi. Hey, Will.
Whoa, P-Town. What's going on, fella?
Doing great, thank you.
Brother, you are more popular than the President of the United States.
I think I'm more popular. Yeah, you're right.
You are. I've literally called the White House and actually got an answer on their phone the first time I tried.
You could. You could just all you have to do is call the White House operator and say, "Hey, I'm a big fan of Barack Obama." Man, you get right in.
That's it, brother. Look, you and Marcus and old Charles there done stirred up such a ruckus. Y'all gonna have to take responsibility. You got everybody in the SEC fighting, don't you?
Yeah, I didn't catch. I only saw it on replay, but apparently there have been some suspensions in that Alabama-Auburn fight last night in the women's game.
Well, you don't just have that. I also called about, you got the two Ole Miss players that got the big brawl down there in the square at Oxford, and now they're.
I didn't know that. What happened? What happened there?
You got the starting safety from last year who started 11 or 12 games, and another player that had transferred from Washington. He actually transferred and set out the year because of the NCAA rules, but he transferred due to assault charges in Washington. Gets over here to Ole Miss, and they got into some big brawl. A bunch of people were arrested, but those two in particular were Ole Miss football players.
Yeah, his last name was Stringfellow.
Yeah, there you go.
Now, the two players got into a fight with each other?
No, I don't know if they were fighting each other. No, the only report they showed was that there was quite a few people were arrested, but those two in particular got noticed because of being football players.
They were charged with disorderly conduct. It's really surprising you would see a fight break out late at night in the square in Oxford, but that's never happened before.
Nobody drinks around there, so I don't know why they would do that. But no, I got.
Hey, let me tell you one thing though, Will. I was in Oxford twice last fall, and I'm going to be back for something in a few months. I don't care whether there's fights breaking out or not. I love it there. It's one of my favorite stops.
Well, I can promise you, you might lose a game, but they ain't never lost a party in the square.
No, it's if I ever decide to have a second home, it's going to be right there in the square in Oxford, Mississippi.
Well, P-Town, if for some reason this fight does manage to go through and y'all need a good undercard, I'm an old 6'1", 240-pound fella. I'd love to take Jim on.
I think we can book that because Jim, better baseball player than Ted Williams, better golfer. I have never heard him say that he was better than Muhammad Ali, but the day's still young. We'll see if we can book that. We'll do it in Oxford, Mississippi. We'll take a short break. Back with more and your phone calls.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
We're back. One of the top sports writers and columnists in the country, Pat Forde, joins us from Yahoo. Pat, always good to catch up. So much going on, and I do want to talk to you about your column yesterday in relation to winners and losers in college football, but I also would like to ask you about an event Sunday that you've written about and I'm sure we'll continue to write about, and that's the significance of Mike Krzyzewski perhaps winning his 1,000th game.
Yeah, unbelievable, really, if you think about this is a sport that's been around a long time. There's been a lot of great coaches, and nobody's come close to that. The record was 902 for Bob Knight, and Krzyzewski has now sailed nearly 100 victories past that. And just to maintain the level of excellence, but also just the passion to keep doing the job for that long is remarkable, and there's no end in sight for him. There really isn't. He's performing at a super high level, and He's going to keep getting good players, and, he could end up with who knows how many wins, 1,200, 1,300.
Indeed, and it certainly will be a very significant moment, and I hope the networks are able to cover it, because right now it doesn't look like anything else is on the docket other than the Deflategate controversy.
Yeah, right. I think that for once, college basketball has kind of got the stage at this time. Usually, it's a sport that has to wait until March to get anybody to pay attention. But I think this time around, it's a pretty good spot on the calendar.
On that subject, you live in Kentucky, so it's hard not to keep up with UK. You've seen them play a number of times. Where is this program in terms of its march toward greatness? It seems like a loss would be considered a national tragedy, or at least a state tragedy in the Commonwealth.
It would certainly be a state tragedy. There's no doubt about that. And, it's interesting. I think a loss would do them good, a lot of good, but I don't think it would necessarily be viewed that way. The funny thing is, you could lose. You could lose twice. You could lose 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, still win the national title. It doesn't preclude you from doing that, which is the ultimate goal. But I think the bar was set so high and the expectation got so high for this team that, everybody started talking 40-0, and they looked 40-0 for a while. Now I don't think they necessarily look that part, but it would be interesting to see the reaction if they do lose.
Yeah, I know you were in Indiana recently, and Indiana did it in 1976. There have been some close calls since then. Winning the national championship is what it's all about, but inside that program, is getting to an undefeated season a big deal, or how much of a deal is it out there?
Oh, it's a big deal. And Calipari, well, he's kind of tried to downplay that, but he's said more than once, he would like to coach a team that goes 40-0, and I think he's really, he's kind of set that bar himself while he's backed away from it to a degree. He would like to have it happen, and so the fans have kind of bought into that. And, hey, when you have 9 great players and you have by far the best talent and the deepest team in the country, that's the aspiration. It's shoot for as high as you can get, and if the national title is great, then an undefeated national title is better.
Moving to that other sport, college football, you wrote about it the other day, talking about all the different changes, and I don't think it's a big reach to say Jim Harbaugh was the best hire. I think we'll go ahead and acknowledge that, as you did. But after that, you had some interesting choices, including Dan Mullen remaining at Mississippi State as one of the big moves of the offseason, or big non-moves, I should say. Yeah,
I think it's huge for Mississippi State. Most people really, I think, thought that was going to be the year he was going to go. And, well, it ended up being a really good season and not an altogether just knockout, 12-1, 12-2 kind of season. Still, it's Mississippi State, and to be 9-0 and ranked number 1, and you get to keep the guy that did that, and you keep the coach or the quarterback who led that team, I think it's a big off-season win for them. Most people had Dan Mullen ticketed for Florida or for Michigan or somewhere else, and he's still in Starkville.
You have a couple. You talk about A&M and Auburn doing well, and certainly you're not so sure about Florida. And we were talking about that a minute ago, Pat. On the day McElwain was hired, it looked really good. He has good coordinators, but what makes you uneasy, or maybe not ready to go full board on Jim McElwain?
I like him a lot. I really do. I just, he's not quite what some Florida people were hoping for, which might have been unrealistic. It certainly was unrealistic to people who were saying, let's get Chip Kelly. That was not going to happen. And the Urban Meyer hire in 2004 was such a clear slam dunk. McElwain's not quite that. He's not coming off a 12-0 season in the Mountain West. He's not, just this purely, obviously stamped total winner. I still think he will do a great job. He proved himself in a place that's not that easy to win, and he's got the Saban method. He's a better recruiter than I think people gave him credit for. He's an offensive guy, which they clearly needed, and I think he's going to do fine there, even if it's one of those places, one of those things where it's going to take a while for everybody to buy in.
Pat, finally, it's been 3 weeks now since Urban Meyer beat Nick Saban. It seems like 3 years if you live in the state of Alabama. But I do want to go back to that, and a lot of your colleagues stamped Meyer the next day as a better coach today. That's a natural reaction. With a couple of weeks to digest, not that you've been feeding or feasting on that all that much since then, but how would you compare and contrast? And secondly, what do you see in the future for Nick Saban in Alabama?
Boy, it's a great question, Paul, and you are closer to it than most of the rest of us. But I think there are reasons to think that program's just going to keep going and keep rolling, but I think there's also some reasons to have a little bit of doubt and a little bit of concern. The quarterback situation going into next year is again going to be a bit unsettled. They're going to lose several very talented underclassmen, which means more people have to step up. It's one program that they have a hard time having really good seniors because they're already gone by the time they should be seniors. So the turnover, is it going to catch up with them? And is Saban, are people getting tired of working for him? Is he losing his edge in any way? I don't know that those things are true, but you wonder if those questions are out there. And it's crazy to think, okay, they came within a 109-yard field goal return of playing for the national title last year. This year it took a brilliant game from Ohio State and a couple of bad throws maybe, and then some bad play calls by Lane Kiffin to keep them from playing for the national title this year. So they're not very far away, but still it kind of feels like maybe this is a little bit of a crossroads for the program.
Interesting stuff. I hope you're a long way from Alabama by the time this hits the satellite towers and bounces across. Hey, Pat, always good to visit. Thank you so much. We'll hopefully talk soon.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it.
Great stuff. Pat Forde, obviously not bringing any bouquets to the Alabama fans. And I think what he says is I've heard that a lot. Is Nick Saban at a crossroads? I know what he's going to do on February 4th. I know what the signing date headlines are going to be. I know what the spin will be in spring and summer. But is Nick Saban at a crossroads, as Pat just got through saying, and as others have suggested? We'll get to your calls, your reaction when we come back.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Let's grab some more calls, and Larry is up next. What do you say, Larry?
Hey, man, I'm getting steamed up, man, listening to these people, Forde, whatever his dang name is.
Pat Forde saying that Nick Saban, with a fifth-year senior who everyone wanted to move to running back, won the SEC championship with him and lost to Ohio State by a touchdown. He's at a crossroads. Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, yeah, man. Come on. And before I do that, Charles from Reeltown, I'm somebody. Let me tell you something, man. I'll give you a tune-up fight. You do it in your backyard, and we can make this happen. I'll live just close enough, and I'll bring some 19-ounce gloves and powder that head. I'll show you how unreal you are about boxing, dude. I boxed in the Navy.
So you'll do the how big are those gloves?
19 ounce. They feel like 2 concrete blocks after a round. They're real heavy, keep you from hurting.
Why do you want to go 19 inches?
19 ounces.
19 ounces.
Because 8-ounce gloves, you hurt him. I'd hurt him.
Okay, so
I don't want to hurt.
I'll see if I can get you just in the backyard. I mean, no audience.
Yeah, down at Reeltown, bro. I'll show up. Okay. I will powder his head. I'll make him realize, and he'll go crawl back over that cow patty he come out from under. I am just sick of listening about, and I ain't never liked Charles. He's an Auburn fan. He's like Willie and Harrington. They're losers. And I would love to. Of course, he won't accept it. He'll be all that talking. Oh, I'm Charles in Reeltown. Yeah. Get ready for a real beatdown, Jack. And we can make that happen.
Yeah, I don't think that's. I mean, listen. I mean, I think that's just a tune-up. We don't need to promote it. We don't need to send ESPN down there. You guys just settle that. And,
we got somebody a little video phone, man. Yeah. Run around the backyard, watch me. But they'll be calling him Canvasback when I get through with him. He'll be on the ground.
How many rounds do you want to go?
Well, you need a minute and a half round.
Okay.
You can't go 3-minute rounds at all. John,
19-ounce gloves. Minute. Anything else you need? You need a referee, or you think you can police the ring yourself?
It don't matter whether you believe me or not. I'd give you a country boy ass whooping.
Don't do nothing, old man. You get on here and yak it, dude. Why don't you take and don't scream and holler and just say, yeah, I'll do it, man. Can you not do that, Charles, from Reeltown? Just say, yes, I will do a tune-up fight with you, and I will hit you so hard, so fast, so many times you think you surrounded Jack.
It don't matter whether you believe me or not. I'd give you a country boy ass whooping.
Well, you going to invite me down to Reeltown or not? Put your money where that Auburn mouth is. You're just like your damn football team. You ain't got no offense, and damn sure ain't got no defense. Okay. Now, you want some of me?
Okay, Charles, what do you say about that?
I asked him who he's talking to.
He's talking
you
to you,
want some, Charles, or not? You're just a big chicken poo like your damn coach.
Hey, I'm looking at a picture on a picture of you on the TV. You the one that be like a big old galoot, big old fat butt.
Really? Well,
you can't have no problem.
Hey, guys, one at a time. One at a time, okay?
Got it, man. You ain't got nothing. You ain't a good caller. You call in and say the same thing every day. That's all you talk about. You talk about Charles Reeltown. You ain't got nothing better to talk about than me, huh? I know you ain't.
Auburn team, and you'll be 1-0 with Larry because you'll won.
Nick Saban. I got a lot to say about Nick Saban, but I'm wasting my time talking to nobody like you. Who in the heck are you? Larry from Shelby County or Missouri or wherever you live? Hey, another Larry. Y'all about the same thing. Both y'all in the same boat. You just alive.
We won, didn't we? 55-44, Jack. Woo! That's a little Ric Flair for you, dude. Now, you want something else now?
Game, did you, Jack? You full of Jack.
You want something else now, Jack?
Alcoholic? You sound like an alcoholic.
Oh, we got a personal name, fat boy. I see you on TV with that skin hanging out of your chin.
Daniel, you like to talk about Jack so much.
Hey, hold on. Hey, Charles, did you, let's cut to the chase. I think we've all heard enough screaming and hollering, but you heard what Larry said, 18-ounce gloves, 19-ounce gloves, 1.5-minute rounds. Will you go for that? We'll do it in your backyard.
Good gracious, yes.
Okay.
Now, let me talk about it. Is he gone?
Tell me the time. Dad'll give you my number.
I got something else to talk about. I don't fool with you enough. You ain't worth fooling with, you big old moron.
Oh, big old moron. You pulling some.
Hey guys, calm down. We're trying to do this. What do you have to say, Charles? Larry, give us a second here, Jack.
You hang up, Jack. Jack Daniel.
Charles, go ahead.
Well, I was going to talk about Nick Saban. I think Nick Saban, he is going down. He's losing it. He's losing that edge he had.
So you agree with Pat Forde? You think he's at a crossroads, right?
Yes, I do, and I tell you why. I told you he's losing that edge. The great coaches have that edge, and they have that, and they carry it with them, and it gives them that edge, gives them the desire to want to win and to keep winning and fight and win. But he's losing it. I tell you what, Carl. They 4 or 5 coaches in the SEC. If they had the same players Nick Saban's had in the last 7 or 8 years, they would have had a lot better record than Nick Saban had. I tell you.
Do you agree, Larry?
No, you know what, Charles is in La La Land. He got them snakes crawling around his head, brother. Bama is in your head, son. You need to worry about Malzahn. Hey, 8-5. 8-5, Charles. We whooped that ass. Hey, we drove you up and down the field by your nose hole, son. Woo! You want any or not?
But he ain't had them players, but he's going to get them, and he's fitting to take over the state of Alabama. He's fixing to win national championship. Nick Saban's going to retire, and I don't know who y'all get, and I don't care.
Gentlemen, thank you. Appreciate it. So, Charles, you did accept. Charles has accepted the invitation from Larry.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
We welcome you back. We asked a question on Twitter on the hashtag Finebaum Friday, who is the greatest college quarterback of all time. Some of us have already chimed in with the response. Larry is next up in Missouri. I'm sure he'll go with Sam
Hey, Nick
Bradford.
Finebaum, how you get along today?
You're going with Sam Bradford?
To be honest with you, I'd probably go old touchdown Tommy Frazier. People overlook that guy, but for a couple of years,
he was pretty good.
Yeah, he's as good as anybody ever played. But I have to go with you, Tebow. Peyton Manning. That's not even a comparison there.
Listen. With all due respect, you can't go 0-4 against Florida in your college career and be considered the greatest quarterback ever, can you?
No, not at all. Plus, Tebow could have been an All-American, little guard, modern-day Billy Naples. We all know that. The first thing I did want to say was roll, Lance, roll. I figure he's already flipped about 2 of them today. And I did enjoy the Kiffin era. It was short, sweet, but it was fun while it lasted. Hey, and I had to chime in on the fight, Larry from Shelby and Charles. This whole thing's full of problems. Larry, bless his heart, how's he going to turn up that flow meter on that tank with them big gloves on? I think they got to go bare knuckles. Because he'll be fighting about 15 seconds.
I agree with you. What's wrong with an old bare knuckles brawl in the backyard? Because by the time Larry puts the gloves on, it will be nightfall.
Yeah, exactly. He'll be up 5 liters by the time he walks across the parking lot. And as far as Charles, only precondition I put on him, he's got to wear Wranglers. I don't want to see him in tights. That's 200 pounds of white flesh I can do without seeing. And the last thing I'll say, hey, I know the bands are getting excited about National Recruiting Day, and there ain't no drama in that. They might finish number 1, but this has to East. Old Gary Pink will be number 30. Ain't nobody can beat them. Some get them, and some can coach them. Thanks, Paul. Boom, son.
Good to hear from you. Thank you very much. Let's continue. Xavier in Portland on a Friday. What's up, Xavier?
Hey, Paul. Peace. Paul, why would you bite the hand that feeds you?
Why would I bite the hand that feeds me?
Why would anybody bite the hand that feeds them?
Which hand feeds me?
The hand of Nick Saban. And you know what I'm talking about.
Tell me, please.
Lane Kiffin needs to understand some respect.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Saban gave him an opportunity. They ran his butt out of USC. They ran his butt out of Tennessee. They ran his butt out of Oakland.
First of all, hold on a second, Xavier. They did not run his butt out of Tennessee. He quit in the middle of the night to go to SC. So let's get that corrected.
Well, I don't think they want him back.
Well, no, I don't think. I mean, if your wife walks out on you for another man, and a couple of years later knocks on the door, unless you're 4 Jack Daniels into the wind, I doubt you'll take her back.
You're right. Well, I just want to say that, I think that Lane Kiffin is making a very grave mistake by leaving the University of Alabama at this time in his juncture.
Well, you have to look at it too. Do me this favor, though. Look at it. I mean, forget what he's doing or why he's doing it. I think the question becomes, what happens to Alabama after that? I think he should stay too, if he asked me, which he hasn't. I think he made a commitment. The question is, if he leaves, why is he leaving? I've heard mixed opinions on why he may be entertaining another offer. Maybe he doesn't feel respected. Maybe he doesn't feel like Saban is giving him enough attention in respect to salary. Maybe he feels like Saban threw him under the bus after the Sugar Bowl. One thing you have to know, Nick Saban can veto any call in the game. He's part of the process. He is the head coach. So I don't know. I've heard all that. Until Kiffin makes up his mind, it's going to be hard. I do know one thing. The day Kiffin leaves, Saban will praise him. Kiffin will praise Saban. And then the very next day, all Alabama fans will trash Kiffin like Tennessee fans have been doing for 5 years.
Right. Well, I think Nick Saban is probably not a real easy coach to work for.
Ooh, I wonder what gave you that idea. You've heard the story, haven't you, Xavier? That they sent the plane from LSU to East Lansing to pick up Saban. Saban had already been introduced, and they sent the plane to bring all his assistant coaches back to Baton Rouge. Have you heard that story?
No, I haven't.
I think he had 8 or 9. I can't remember at the time. Do you know how many assistant coaches from Michigan State got on the plane to go to Baton Rouge with him?
How many, Paul?
None.
Wow. Well, I hope he really thinks about his future at the University of Alabama. That's all I have to say. But I really appreciate you taking my call. And
no, that's fair. And by the way, one of those, Bobby Williams was elevated to head coach, and he was fired a couple of years later. And of course, now he works for Nick Saban. I mean, that's the remarkable part of Saban. I've sat at lunch with Saban assistants and former Saban assistants. I had lunch with somebody about 10 years ago, and all the guy did during the lunch was talk about how his wife was encouraging him to leave Saban's staff or she was going to get a divorce. That's how difficult Nick Saban used to be to work for. Of course, now that guy's a head coach somewhere and doing pretty well.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
We welcome you back to the program. As I don't know why we care. I mean, there's just people doing their jobs. Why can't people do? I mean, people are running around. Everybody's yelling like.
It's more exciting that way.
Yeah.
You know.
And it's not like somebody cleans.
It's not
this
an
place.
Operating room.
Yeah, this is no big deal. Anyway, good to see you, Matt. That's Matt Stinchcomb. You've been off the grid for a couple of weeks. I forgot what you looked like.
Has it gotten better? I hope
great.
so. There's nowhere to go but
You
up.
lost one of your running partners. You went back into coaching, Gene Chisholm.
I ran him off. I thought it was going great. We enjoyed the season.
You guys had great chemistry, and
next thing you know, he's on the sidelines again, for crying out loud. Yeah, you know, I know he's really excited about that opportunity.
Did you sense it? I mean, you were with him all year. Did he wanted to go back, or
just the heavy size whenever I would say anything, and just the fact that he just looked miserable. And no, I mean, I couldn't see it coming at all. I thought he was great at it and enjoyed working with him this year. It was fantastic to have a coach on the show to get his perspective, and it is different and distinct from the playing experience, you know. So
I thought it was weird when I came in today. Lane Kiffin was in the lobby and he had a resume. So
that's what happened today? I was wondering who that guy was.
So much going on, and want to start. Big surprise with Georgia. They announced an extension and a raise for Mark Richt, and we opened the phone lines, and there seemed to be more criticism of that from Georgia fans. And you played there, of course, under Jim Donnan, and we were an All-American, and it's hard to understand the fan base there, but you know them better than we do.
I don't know that I do. I'm among them probably more than you are.
You are.
And you know, I don't know that individual opinions express those of the masses all the time. So, you know, oftentimes the most vocal does not necessarily represent the majority. So, I don't know what the conversation has been necessarily. I would say that, you know, after a 10-win season, it was still probably, in many eyes, a disappointing season. And most of that assessment would probably come from within the athletic offices and certainly the football offices in Athens. I think it was an opportunity missed this past season. That said, I don't know that anything would warrant a change in the direction, so to speak, of the football program proper. And in today's time, and we've learned this with what's transpired in Columbia, South Carolina, you can't afford to have a coach that's kind of hanging out there because it turns too quickly in this conference. You either have to commit to the guy or you have to make a change. But there can't be this, oh, he's got 2 years left or 3 years left. You are basically loading the gun for everyone you're recruiting against and giving them ammunition to go into every recruit's living room and say, you want to come and play for this guy? Great, because in 2 or 3 years he may be gone, and it may be even sooner than that. Part of it, I think, this extension is a function of the recruiting wars that go on every day in living rooms, especially right now.
Well, let's talk a little bit, because it's almost when you go to callers or run into Georgia fans, which you do, and we all do, there are just certain talking points. He's a good man. He runs off players, and the other guy jumps into the conversation and says, yeah, but look at all the arrests over the years. And then you get overall his record is fantastic, which I think we would agree with. And then, yeah, but he hasn't won the national. I mean, it's the same argument every time with Mark Richt. And he's won the day so far. But they're just, whether there are a lot or a little, there is just undercurrent there that just won't go away.
It's become kind of an old saw, right? But of course, when you're in a league that garners as much attention as football does, as the Southeastern Conference gives this sport, absolutely everything is going to be scrutinized to the nth degree, and it's no less a fact that there's not a national championship in Athens since 1980, and that rankles a lot of folks, any fan base that's expectant of championships. They've been on the precipice, but nobody really wants to talk about that, including the folks. This is what I think is lost in a lot of this oftentimes. especially from a fan's perspective or former player's perspective. The guys that are in these programs now, they want championships more than anybody else. There isn't a fan out there that wants it more than the folks that are actually working towards that championship. Being a fan allows you to be a fanatic, and buying that ticket does warrant you to have the passion for winning and losing. But nobody wants to win the contest that's being observed more than the folks that are coaching and playing in it. And that's it. And I think oftentimes that gets kind of diluted, and we get a little bit removed from it as observers like I am now. And fans from that fact that nobody's putting more towards victory than the kids and the men that are directing those kids in these games.
Mike Bobo gets a head coaching job. Schottenheimer comes in. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I think he's got big shoes to fill. I think we could talk about the fan base and how they view Mark Richt. But Mike Bobo, I think, was so grossly misperceived and underappreciated by most folks that follow the University of Georgia. And I think that may actually be true. I don't think it's just the folks that call on the radio shows. It's predictable and this and that. Look, the numbers speak for themselves. I think the success in certain circumstances speak for themselves. It's got nothing to do with the fact that he was quarterback when I was there. He was a liability for what I had to do. The guy was not mobile, and he just stood there in the pocket. I've got no agenda. I think when you look at him as a coach, he was a superb recruiter and all these things. That said, it's a great opportunity for him at Colorado State, and it's a tremendous opportunity, I think, for Coach Schottenheimer, because he's coming into what is otherwise, other than the quarterback position, I think a really good scenario, an offense that has an identity. So there's no re-envisioning, I think, that needs to be done, and perhaps that's why Coach Schottenheimer is there. The challenge, I think, will be for him, I think a lot of people observed this when he was hired, is the transition to the college game, the 20-hour week. You have a limited amount of time with these kids. You can't work with them with the football in the offseason. There's a lot of limitations because they're college students. Those limitations are warranted, and rightfully so. This is not the NFL. They're not professionals, and that's where he has been for the longest time. That and recruiting, I think, are going to be the biggest areas where he's going to have to really jump on a pretty ballistic learning curve.
On the quarterback situation, because we can easily say other than that, but that's a big deal, and we all know it.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, Nick Chubb, you could say, and I think we talked about this in one of the shows, Todd Gurley, in my opinion, when he was healthy, was the most dominant college football player this past season. We only got to see him in an abbreviated manner. That said, he's left this football team, and they're going to be able to fill that void. Maybe not completely, but Nick Chubb, by the time he's done, I think is going to be a Todd Gurley type of a talent, and maybe is very close to being that already. But you have to have a complementary aspect to your offense. We know that. We've seen that in this conference. Now, if you have to be somewhat one-dimensional, you'd rather be able to run the football. We've seen teams be able to do that. The guy that has to be able to execute that is as yet to be determined in Athens. And you wonder, is he already on campus, that sort of thing. So Coach Schottenheimer does have his work cut out for him. Bobo was the quarterback's coach. So they're going to have to figure out what they're going to need to get out of that passing game. It wasn't a lot this past season, even without Todd Gurley and the emergence of Nick Chubb. And at the same time, I don't know that you can expect to have division-winning, championship-winning type of offenses without that passing game to complement a strong run game.
You alluded, Matt, to Steve Spurrier's situation, and he said originally it didn't look like there would be changes. Now there's strong winds indicating there will be changes on the defensive side, but that doesn't help what you said about his status. He doesn't look like he wants to stay long term, but he had to walk that back because of recruiting. What is your view of Spurrier and the South Carolina program right now? I
think that Coach Spurrier is as committed to that program as you could possibly be. And I think, and in saying that, I think he wants to leave a legacy there that's in a positive note. And so if it takes a couple more seasons, I don't doubt for a moment that he's committed to do that. But I also think that what spurred him on to come back and say, well, let me be clear that this isn't a 2-year gig or what have you. The 4 and 5 year window is important because you're talking about kids. You redshirt, you're there for 5 seasons. Now, the truth of the matter is, Paul, is any 18-year-old kid that's making a decision, a recruiting decision, and he's coming to play for a coach is crazy. Outside of a quarterback, you're nuts because you look at the turnover, and it's enormous, especially at the position coach and even the coordinator level. Look at what's happened in the Southeastern Conference this year. You go to play for a school, you go to play for a program, you go to a school for an education. Those are the things you need to be going there for. If you're going there to play for a coach, I mean, you really are. You're rolling the dice, especially in an accomplished program, because there's always going to be the NFL, and there's always going to be suitors for the guy that you're going to quote-unquote play for. Now, you're going to play for the guys that are already in that program at a place where you want to go to school.
We haven't talked about Florida's situation with Jim McElwain, some really nice coaches added. What's your view, short and intermediate, for them?
You know, I don't think that there was any argument that there was talent there. Coach Muschamp coming into the season says, I feel like I've got some players that we can win with, and it didn't work. And, you look at what Jim McElwain has done, what he did at Alabama, what he's done in previous stops, and what he was able to continue and really build at Colorado State. And I think it's curious that the guy who replaced him at Alabama is now his offensive coordinator. But I think it should be, I guess it should be surprising, because it was a kind of a continuance of what Coach McElwain was doing in Doug Nussmeier. So I think it's a great hire. I mean, obviously both guys that certainly understand the conference in that regard. Jeff Collins, who's been around, is a very aggressive type of a play caller on the defensive side of the football, enjoyed a lot of success at Mississippi State, certainly had their deficiencies as well on that side of the football. I don't know that they fielded as strong of a defense as the ones that were on the field under Will Muschamp. And at the same time, I think it's a pretty solid hire at the coordinator level. So, it will always come back down to, I think, at Florida. Are they going to start scoring points again? I mean, really, 2012, was anybody that excited from Florida's perspective when they rattle off 12 wins? And I know that it didn't go well in the Sugar Bowl and all that, but they won it with defense and running the football, and nobody seemed jazzed about it. I mean, it's 12 wins, but who's excited about it? They want to score some points again, and I really do think that, you can start winning games. That's job one, but you need to start scoring some points. I think that's what that fan base is really thirsting for.
We're primarily talking about the SEC East because, for the most part, they won their bowl games.
Yeah.
And we talked about the West enough. Interesting stuff. Missouri, as we wind up the East conversation, and we'll talk about the West another time, as if we don't talk about it every day. But, they still don't get much conversation, and Gary Pinkel continues to win division titles.
It's an enigma. I mean, at the end of the season, I'm staring at it. I'm no genius, but you really do look at it and you think they find ways to win games, and it seems like it's different every week. Matty Mock will show up in spurts in the second half, and all of a sudden can't miss. And, he's throwing balls behind his head and triple reverse, bouncing off the backboard, and all of a sudden it's in Bud Sasser's hand for a first down, or Jimmy Hunt for a big bomb. But it works. Special teams seems to be a hallmark of what they've been able to do, certainly this year. They generate a ton of turnovers. They had a little bit of a drought in the middle of the season, and then they go right back to their turnover-generating ways. They found a way to run the football at the end of the season, but what's so frustrating for like a talking head like me is you like to just put them in a box. Arkansas, they run the football. Missouri, this is what they do and this is how they win. No, you couldn't do that this year. They were an irritant because they kept winning for different reasons every week, and you thought, I want to be able to just snap a chalk line and be like, this is the Missouri Tigers, and I'll just revisit this the rest of the year, build on it. You couldn't do it because they're winning one week, with Marcus Golden and Shane Ray generating turnovers. One week it's special teams. The other week it's these little spurty offensive shots that they get in the passing game. It's Russell Hansborough. It's something different every week. But what is that a hallmark of? It's a coach that knows how to find ways to win with a roster that's available to them. And they were decimated at receiver. They weren't dominant on the offensive front. They had a key injury early on in the season, and they found ways to win games anyway.
Great stuff. Matt Stinchcomb with the SEC Network, the former Georgia All-American. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast. Tune into the Paul Finebaum Show every day from 3 to 7 Eastern on the SEC Network or on the ESPN radio app.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.